Hello, Eagle.
Hello, you alright?
Yeah, doing well, mate.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
Do you want me to start?
Yeah. Well, how about we start with a little introduction from yourself and just a quick update on, well, actually where you're at now.
Okay. I was born Gary Nigel Eagling, but what a ridiculous name! So I had to change it to Eagle Spitz. I got into punk 36 years ago after seeing the Stranglers on Top of Pops, which is a crap TV program I used to get over here. Went out, started putting safety pins through my ears and that type of stuff, and it was very much a fashion thing. And then as time grew on, punk went back in England. It went back to where it should have been, back on the ground, a very much a DIY community, and that's where I've been residing the past 36 years, I suppose. I guess the difference with me is that I became a Christian about 3 years ago, and I thought everybody thought I was going to become a lot more right wing or whatever. I actually became a lot more radical in what I was doing. As Gadgie fanzine, which is like a fanzine over in the UK, did a review of me. It was very complimentary, which I used for the title of my new book, Slap in the Middle of a Contradiction. And it's when it's talking about my Christian belief system, but actually motivating me to sort of get involved in sort of campaigns and social issues and social justice. The people I'm knocking around with now are, I'm very much part of a UK underdogs punk community. I'm also sort of knocking around with Christian anarchists, the anti-ATOS group, the anti-drones campaign, and most of the stuff I'm writing is very political. I've been writing stuff. My latest stuff is called "The Badgers of the Disabled," because the British government are trying to wipe out 70% of badgers because they're blaming them for the spread of TB. Instead of looking at real issues like intensive farming, I've been writing stuff called Faceless Killers, which is very much about the drones and how thousands of innocent children have been killed over in Pakistan, and also ATOS Death Squad, because people are dying in the UK because the government's employed ATOS to assess people about the benefits. So people are, the disabled people are sort of dropping like flies. I've just had my benefits sort of roughly reduced, despite medical evidence saying that I'm partially sighted. But obviously people who have sort of critical conditions are dying because they're having the benefits stopped, because it looks like a war on the poor as usual. So I guess that's where I am at the moment.
Wow. Well, you've definitely got yourself very involved in a lot of issues, and staying right amongst it. You sort of did you really start your roots in all of this beginning with Punk for the Homeless? I mean, I think we sort of first made contact a few years back when we were releasing We Are the Streets, which was a song written about the homeless youth and that. So, was that really where you began?
Well, you're following a fine tradition of that one, because Blaggers ITA, one of my favourite bands, actually do a song called Oxygen. It was about the police killing street children in Brazil. So, Punk for Homeless actually came about because two reasons. Like I said earlier, I became a Christian, so I went to church and I was singing Lord. I'm late because I've been clubbing the night before, and I was singing a song, Lord of Sea and Sky. I thought, I know this thing. It's the Vandals. I love the Vandals. I think they did the best Christmas album ever. But at that point, I got this real conviction that God wanted me to start putting punk bands on again. And then with the church having a really strong emphasis, with the church I was going to until I moved into Nottingham 2 months ago, as they've been opening places, a night shelter, running a soup kitchen, supplying meals to the homeless. So it was a lot natural that I started doing stuff for homeless. So what I did was I wrote letters to homeless charities saying, look, I'm going to start putting punk bands on again. I want to do it for homeless causes. So do you want to be part of this? The only charity that got back to me was a charity called Casa Alianza, who deal with street children in America.
Right.
The reason they got back to me was because my ex-wives, I did have a schoolboy's dream. I copped off with my mate's mother many years ago, and I married her. So my best mate actually became my stepson, but he went over. But yeah, it's friction time.
Right.
But he went over to Guatemala to work with street kids, and I did a few fundraisers in those days. This is about 84, 85. Punk festivals called Doing It for the Kids, and that was for Casa Alianza, the charity which he was working with. So that actually sort of was one of the routes that led to Casa Alianza getting back to me, because I already knew the stuff I'd done before, because my stepson had been over there. So it all sort of ties in from different angles, really. That was starting to get involved with homeless causes. But now we do a lot of stuff for street kids. We also do stuff in conjunction with other charities. We did one of my favourite gigs we did was a gig in conjunction with an organisation called Camden Calling, which is a homeless-based music charity with run by homeless musicians. This is in London, and we did a gig. So Punk for Homeless did a gig in conjunction with Camden Calling, and one of the bands we used was a band called Heavy Load, which is class themselves as UK's only disabled punk band. The drummer's got Down syndromes. Two of the guys have got learning difficulties. They live in a home in Brighton with one of the carers in their home is actually a band member, so he gets them around. So we've got disabled guys, homeless guys, helping street kids, and I think for me that's perfect. Concept of the DIY scene, that we all do a bit to help one another.
Eagle, that sounds incredible. Just the amount of DIY that people actually put into such, a genre such as punk, and I think compared to Australia, you're years ahead of us. That's as far as I'm concerned, I don't think I've actually heard of a band such as disabled people themselves putting together music and doing something for a cause.
No, nevertheless, looking for more and more ourselves, people in Australia and around the world that are, sharing in the same ideals, that actually give a damn, about what goes on, and they're not, able to turn a blind eye to it all. And there are musicians out there and artists, in Australia here that do have that care, but it's finding them. It's, putting the links in the chain and dotting all the people together. That's the hard part.
I think it happened pretty much worldwide, because we had a compilation come out just to plug the cause of Punk for the Homeless, and it came out for a net label, Stone Age Records, based in Indonesia, and half the album was DIY Indonesian punk bands. Half of it was more Western bands, radically from America, but it was all very, very much DIY, and it was very much a whole thrust. I mean, we've got skinheads, punks, Christians, Muslims, atheists, transvestites, all sort of mixing together to sort of really push the cause of the street kids. I think, from my experience with Punk for Homeless, it's not that people don't want to do something about the world situation, it's that they don't know what to do. And I think Punk for Homeless, what we did was actually give people things they could do, and they just picked it up and ran with it.
Yeah, that's it. I think it's more in the case of things today. Most people are pretty aware, or at least to some level, are conscious of the issues and the things that happen. But not everybody's as educated or provided knowledge about how to be part of the solution, towards seeing those ends change, and don't really know what to do. And because a lot of life focus revolves around, getting by for most people, and that requires a lot of time and work and effort put into your own life, and or lack thereof, for that matter. You know. So hopefully, I suppose, what I'd like to see is more community between people. I suppose to see those issues change. I mean, our experiences in Sydney as a band with the homeless, that was pretty life changing for us. We'd never really been exposed to that information or that world before that time. I mean, obviously it was an issue that you'd been aware of, but you don't get shown, and you don't ever really know until you've gone and you've looked for it yourself, or you've come across it yourself, and you understand the true scope of the circumstances and what's really going on with these kids. And that's really, I suppose, what drove us to want to do something about it, is that we could just see how much suffering there was, and even within our own country, you know, it's not okay. So we just really wanted to do our part, I suppose, to contribute and try and be part of that solution to help these kids. And we met a lot of really, really beautiful people along the way. That just, I don't know, there are really people here with hearts of gold, to say the least. People like Paul Maltz. That was a man, I don't know if you've heard of him. He was a man who works at Oasis there. He's now Major Paul Maltz at the Salvation Army.
And Oasis was a homeless youth shelter in Sydney.
Yes.
All right. My wife works for the Salvation Army as a duty manager to a homeless, which is 70-bedroom men's homeless hostel in Nottingham.
Yes, right.
So it's connections. But yeah, it's a big organisation, isn't it? So it's like
yeah, it's far-reaching.
Yeah.
For sure. I did want to ask you a little bit more about, on a musical level of things, you know, what you're doing now. I suppose I know you're performing in a few bands and continuing with your poetry and everything, but what is it? That's something I read about you, was working in different genres. You know, providing a similar message, but bringing it and broadening it across different genres, and you know, allowing that to transcend to different perspectives and different groups of people,
different audiences.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think what I do is like, I think you've got very much a punk attitude. So I think it's very much use what's available. So when my old band starting point of genocide, which, you know, I was a bit wilder in those days, we were often compared to Crass, fronted by G.G. Allen.
Okay.
Which was a crazy situation, but I'm well pleased I'm out of those days. But it was fun. But when that split up, I was wondering what to do. So I started this project called Eagle Spits Hex. So a guy called Hex, and we were doing industrial music, and I was just shouting poetry over the top of it. That sort of disbanded, and then we did. I just started doing the Eagle Spits poetry stuff. Excuse me. And then the next stage of that was meeting up with a busker guy in Boston, Lincolnshire, England, because I was short of an act for the first ever Punk for Homeless gig. So, and I ended up teaching him some songs one night in the pub toilet. So 5 minutes after teaching him a couple of songs, we was performing in them in the pub. That led on to the Poor Geezers, which we produced 4 albums. But at the same time, I was doing a band called Eagle Spits. It was like me fronting, you know, similar sort of managers, sort of full-on punk band, where I was sometimes described as Anti-Flag meets UK Subs. Yeah. But I've also had a real interest in sort of industrial music and stuff as a punk at the time. So at the moment what we're doing is I'm doing Eagle Spit's Hex stuff, and we're actually, Hex has gone off to do a degree, and they're teaching electronic music. So we're actually doing a musical piece, which is has got real sort of full-on political lyrics, but it's poetry with industrial sounds. And we're actually, as part of that, we're doing a video, a film presentation as part of the anti-drone campaign. At the same time, I'm sort of still doing poor geezer stuff. At the same time, I'm still shouting at people and just doing the Eagle Spitz poetry stuff. And I'm also been doing some stuff with another guy. We played in an art centre in Stoke-on-Trent on Saturday night. I was doing some poetry and another guy was just joining me on guitar. So, yeah, it's a similar message, and I think it's more by accident than design that I'm sort of using different genres. I mean, the Poor Geezers got described in one fanzine, which I really like, as Patchwork Punk. The other guy, who was one of the mainstays in Poor Geezers, plays guitar and drums at the same time. He plays drums with his feet and plays guitar and uses mouth organ. Spirit, it's got sort of punk stuff in there, but bits of psychobilly, bits of rock, bits of folk, bits of country, and the best description is patchwork punk. But we play alongside punk bands all the time. It's very much an attitude as opposed to music style.
Right. Yeah. See, that's an awesome way to view it. I think that's always the way we've really seen it. Is there's an ethic, there's an attitude based in punk that is about standing up for what you believe in and living in freedom.
And we think, like, to a certain point as musicians, that we like to open our minds up to all genres of music and not be restricted by something that's something different from what we play. And we also think the same with punk as well, especially the attitude and the way you think. It's not necessarily the genre you play or particularly the message you really preach. It's more about the attitude that you have.
Oh, totally. I mean, attitude has always been there in music. It's like I think punk, in some quarters, was a manufactured commodity, but in mostly it was a evolutionary process. If you look at the guys, old jazz guys like Thelonious Monk or John Coltrane or Bird or any of those guys, they were punks. Their attitude is, this is what we're doing. This is, we're getting on with it and just doing what we do.
Yeah,
sure.
That's it.
Yeah, and that's something we totally agree with.
Yeah, I remember what you were saying before about how, you've seen a lot of what happened with those bands of your own as being accidental in terms of different genres and that. And I almost find it funny. I was asking a question about genre to someone when the amount of times we've been asked about that and just haven't had an answer.
No.
Like we've been pinned on punk for a long time and pinned on a lot of other different genres like metal and, post-hardcore and rock, and it goes on. But people have trouble finding a place for it, and we don't really want one because we expect that is going to change.
Well,
yeah, I think the thing is, it's like if you look over in Australia, you've got bands there. I mean, big bands are very much a punk attitude. I mean, Midnight Oil. I mean, they're always one of my favourite bands because
just been talking about them in the last few days.
Sorry?
We've just been talking about them in the last few days.
Positively or negatively?
Positively.
Oh, good.
Of course. They've just released a new album out here of a collection of all their new music, and we've just been playing it through on the stereo, and it's good to just hear that again at this age. Yeah. Grew up on a lot of that music, but
I mean, there's a lot of those good guys out there. I mean, it's like Neil Young's a bit of a chameleon, I think, when it comes to politics. But I mean, when he's really, really pissed off with something, the Living with War album was just a fantastic album. Some Steve Earle stuff is just amazing. You've got sort of Billy Bragg and a lot of those guys. We've got a young guy in the British punk scene called Bruce Tality, who just does sort of punk-inspired blues stuff that's drawn on a lot of the old masters, like Howling the Wolf, people playing the mouth organ for his amp and stuff, and he's like a real sort of punk troubadour and a good old line of Phil Oakes and Bob Dylan and Woody Guthrie and stuff, but it's still punk rock as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, most definitely. I actually I seen a show on ABC here called Q&A that had Peter Garrett and Billy Bragg both
Right.
guesting on the show, just talking about politics and general Australian issues and music as well. And they were asked a question by someone in the audience about where the bands that were like Midnight Oil and bands that did have that really strong standing point on a message, like where are they today? Why aren't they being as heard as they were before? Like there isn't really, I suppose, a band in Australia that's ever done what Midnight Oil did in the same way. Took it to that level where they were really just saying it. They were talking to the people about what was going on, and they were listening and responding in a way that was magnetic. Like it changed things for a lot of people, and it opened a lot of Australian citizens' eyes to politics in a bigger way, and to what they could do to help out and the issues that were going on. So there's
Yeah,
so much power in music.
well, for me, it was one of the most powerful things they did was open the Olympics that year. With Beds of Burning.
Right.
How awesome is that? Sort of straight message coming from Australia, and give it back.
Yeah, that's it. Our research is just as people has led us down all that road about what it means to be Australian now, and how we've gotten to where we've gotten, and how a lot of people have gotten to that point. I mean, I hate to cross back, but I heard you mention the Olympics just before, and that triggered my memory to something else you said about the drones that you guys are protesting and talking about. Only because I remember the amount of military and weapons influence and a lot that was there on the Olympics over in Europe, in London, just recently. Just remember seeing a lot of large turrets and things on top of buildings, and a ship in the river there, and it looked pretty full on just from news reports. But I mean, I wasn't there, so what is it? What is the situation with the drones and that sort of things going on over in your world?
The best way of answering you that is by reading your poem, if that's alright.
Go
Yeah,
ahead.
totally.
That'd be great.
The faceless killers came today, taking all my life away. Why did they come for me, murdering my family? I am just a farmer poor, my argument was with those next door. Nothing to do with the CIA, the faceless killers came today. There is no reason, there is no rhyme for the horrendous crime. Just a heartless act of the will, not to know, just to kill. The drones, they splattered my children's blood, in God we trust for the good. To inflict their democracy on a people who cannot see. With might that is never right, they set my house alight. Whilst my children burned and slept, the God I served howled and wept over such blasphemy, murdering so-called enemies. So now we live in times of drones where faceless enemies take our homes, as accurate as a blind man's stick, and in a street where blood runs thick. Our children's screams are not heard by the deadly hummingbird, and those X marks a deadly spot. Families now decay and rot. The butchering of the innocent by the mosquitoes which were sent by the murderous CIA to kill our youngsters whilst at play. And as tablets bring the only sleep, babies die and mothers weep. The killing of civilians in a distant far-off land. A sanitised brutality from the land of the free. Also funded by the British pound, the sound of whirring all around. And I may not be of their clan, but I'm certainly not the Taliban. The omnipresent demonic god stalking their neighbourhood, waiting for a chance to strike, killing man, woman, child alike. No seeing the whites of eyes, just press a button and don't see them die. Don't see the horror of torment and pain. Never apologise and never explain. Just combat aerial vehicles in the skies to keep the killing sanitised. So, yeah, very much. Just down the road from where I'm living is Mansfield, and some of the parts of the drones are being created there. And it's just mindless killing because it's just lots and lots of innocent people are just being blown a bit to parts, because of feuds and people sort of, because it's based on spies. And people are sort of grassing their neighbours and people are argued with, and the CIA sending drones and stuff in, and there's absolutely nothing to do. And then it's so inaccurate. I mean, there's lots and lots and lots of children are being blown apart. By and it's so distant and so remote, but it's just like playing a Mega Drive, playing a Sega game, and people are being blown shitless because, and it's just sanitized because people aren't seeing people being killed.
No, it's killing without a face.
How many people are we talking here? Is it hundreds in months, or
do you have any figures on really what's going on?
I haven't got any figures, but there's a excellent website which called Pinch of Salt.
Pinch of Salt.
Pinch of Salt.
Yeah, if you type in Pinch of Salt anarchism, it'll take you sort of several links about drones and give you good figures and stuff. But it's in the thousands.
Yeah. Was this during the Olympics? Is this been going on for 10 years longer?
Yeah, this has been going on for a long time.
Yeah.
Okay.
But talking about the Olympics though, what the most cynical thing about the Olympics for me was the paraplegic Olympics.
Yeah.
Because over here, it was sponsored by ATOS, and these are the people who are stopping the disabled money. So it's the people who are actually causing the death of the disabled people actually sponsoring the paraplegic Olympics.
Ludicrous.
It wasn't. I don't know why it has to be that way. Every time. You could just. You see one way, I suppose is a fair way, and it's a way most people probably would like to see things. But it's often skewed. Especially in situations like this where it shouldn't be.
Well, I think the thing is, it's like, he's going to say really hippie now, but I mean, as Jesus said, but I mean, as the Beatles said, all you need is love. And I think so often we're sold bullshit instead of love. It's like we're offered the trinkets, we're offered the shiny things, we're offered, metal and ice instead of smiles and warmth.
Yes.
If that makes sense.
No, it totally does. Perfect sense. I ask myself that every day. Things could be so much more simpler with that in mind.
If we put that idea first.
Yeah, I mean, human beings have to come before you have to come before ideas. I mean, I just watched Alan Moore's. I just watched Alan Moore's V for Vendetta.
Yeah.
And as much as I love the film, and as much as I love Alan Moore, when he's talking about the idea doesn't die, I think it's ideas put before people which actually kills.
That's right. It's actually
it's like people have died. I mean, it's blasphemy to kill in the name of Christ. People die in the name of Christianity. People die in the name of communism, when it's all about you looking after one another. It's all about people being equal, but people are dying in the name of these systems, and it's like, it's just bullshit. People have to be seen. For me, they have to be seen as divine.
At the end of the day, everyone wants power.
Yeah, I think one of the causes of that, seeking after that power, is that in our capitalist systems, you were told time and time again that you're worth nothing unless you've got. So, and people are downtrodden to actually get more. So when people are downtrodden, they have to inflict their power onto somebody else just to make themselves feel powerful. So it's like you have to dominate to actually sort of feeling a sense of self-worth.
Yeah, and I think that's that ideal for people is perpetuated by the way society is.
Oh, totally.
Yeah, we are forced into those circumstances because of the way we are living. It's this constant dog world. We're all fighting to survive.
Well, because the world systems we live in can't exist without that dog eat dog. I mean, it's all about you achieving, and it's all about gaining. Capitalism can only exist because it plays on the negative aspect of man.
Yeah, plays upon a competitive nature, upon uh, one outdoing another instead of one helping another.
Yeah,
Equaling
yeah,
each other.
yeah. I mean, it's like we are. I mean, we are all equal, aren't we? I mean, it's like the New Model Army. Do you know New Model Army?
Ah, no, I'm not familiar.
They're pagans, actually, but I think that's about 30 years. They're sort of Celtic, sort of sounding punk band. Awesome band, well worth checking out. But they did a song called "Drag It Down." There was a line in it: "In whose eyes are we equal now? Now we've killed God." And it's like, okay, so we do away with the past, we do away with religion, we do away with magic and stuff. But in whose eyes are we equaling? When we've dragged down all the statues, when we've changed, reduced it down to sort of brand labels, whose eyes are we equaling? And I think it's a very good question.
Yeah, that's it.
Well, what's your opinion on that, being that a Christian and all?
But I think the whole of my belief system means that I have to put you first.
Right.
I have to. I mean, Jesus says, "Such as you've done to the least of my brethren, you've done unto me." So when a copper in Latin America is stamping on a child's throat, it's Jesus' throat we're stamping on.
I see.
Okay.
So it's all about you. So the whole thing for me is about love.
Yes.
And it's about speaking out against injustice. It's about sort of you attacking injustice and sort of trying to build up the little man. Looking after those. The Bible says. I mean, I know the Bible is very often distorted, and there's a lot of bullshit which is preached in. There's a part of my book called "Talking Crap in the Name of the Lord," which is very much about bullshit, which is often spoken as Christianity. But I mean, the book of James says religion was acceptable to God as this: that you look after widows and orphans and keep yourself untainted from the world. I think it's very difficult to be untainted, to keep yourself untainted. In a world of sort of capitalism, world where the media is telling you need to have this. And the thing is, if you need to have that Rolls Royce, then you can't look after those people around you.
No,
because
there's no other option too. Besides, you either get that Rolls Royce or nothing else. You can't have that in between of looking after someone else or that Rolls Royce.
No, I mean, it has to be.
One or
It
the
has
other.
to be what you're saying, community.
You give
So-
your life in servitude to help others, and that denies you certain material rights, certain material worth as a person.
Well,
But
yeah, I mean,
that should never be the factor in the first place.
well, I think the thing is, it's like when Jesus said, if you've got two coats and see your brother and without one, you should give him one of yours. But I think alongside that, if you've got two coats and your brother hasn't got a coat, you've stolen his coat.
Okay, yeah, I see
Yeah.
that.
That's it. It was his as well.
And-
It was always
and-
what's yours is mine. And, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's simple. I mean, it's like Proudhon said, all property is theft. And when you look at it, I mean, how much of a property do we need? It's like in Amsterdam they have a system, and they've developed it in London now, where people just use a bicycle and leave it when they're finished with it.
Mm. Well, it's
And
a hard thing.
But what is hard, because I mean, I think we've become programmed to, unless you've got certain things, then it's not, then you know of no value of any as a human being, as opposed to having a sense of self-worth because you're confident in yourself enough to love somebody.
Yeah. Well, I think it's really interesting for people at the moment. I mean, we're coming into an age where things are changing, quite clearly to people. There's an uprising in mindsets and changing of, things across the world. That means quite a bit. Whether the entire populace is taking notice or not, there is a lot of people right now that are really trying to define their freedom or define what that means for them or what it's going to mean if they see these things through. And a lot of these morals and things that we talk about trying to see these freedoms come to light and see those changes that are really, really positive, are as hard transitions for people who don't understand where the problems have even began. That's,
No,
I suppose...
I agree, but I also think, yeah, it's like Gandhi said, be the change you want to see.
in the world.
Yeah, and it's like, I think the situation is that as we can feel so overwhelmed by stuff, but we can't do nothing, but we can affect the guy next door's life. The guy who's sort of dying down the street because the government stopped his money because they're sort of saying that he's not disabled. I mean, the people down that street can feed that guy. I think what the punk world has shown us, the DIY punk world, is that you can look after those around you, and this will affect everything else.
Yeah, that's something I hope that can be imparted upon more people.
Well,
I think it has to be. But if you look at the success of, I mean, a lot of people saying it wasn't a success, but if you look at what I say is the success of the Occupy movement, people are actually out there doing stuff. People are actually saying, I'm going to stand aside this guy, I'm going to stand aside the poorest people in this world.
Yes.
I'm going to stand against you.
Yeah, that's where the strength of people is starting to lie, is in their ability to stand together.
I think that actually draws out the real sort of qualities of what it means to be human.
Yeah,
I think I often end up in a discussion with people when I say, because I mean politically I'm an anarchist, but people say, well, okay, capitalism is collapsing, fair enough. There's going to be a rise of a riot. And I think the optimist of me is actually thinking, well, no, that's not going to happen, because I think what is happening is that people are having to live. People with nothing are actually having to live more outside of the system. So self-help groups are actually sort of naturally forming.
Right.
It's all more organic, and it's just sort of sprouting because it needs to be there. And people, that's it.
Totally. Which is, I mean, for me, as an anarchist, that is perfect. You think there is hope at the end of this system. And I think we all need hope.
Yeah, it's an important word at the moment.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I was just going to say, for future plans, is this going to be a continuing part in your life where you're going to contribute playing music? Are you going to continue to speak out? Is this something that you see doing, obviously, for the rest of your life? Or
I think when I was first had a Mohican when I was about 14-year-old, I'm 50 this year. Right. My mum and dad were saying, it's all right to grow out of it. And I don't think I've grown out of it yet. So I think, probably I'm never going to. So I'm always, I'm always going to be sort of shouting at people in some, way or another. Whether it's about street children, whether it's about other injustices and stuff. Obviously, sort of, the street children is one thing which is a major part of what I do with Punk for the Homeless. But, there's, I think, for me, it's like, when Martin Luther King was shot, one of the things what really impressed me was that he was fighting the equal rights, but you see the war in Vietnam as being a great injustice. He couldn't speak it. He needed to speak out of that. And I think in his last speech, you can actually see that he knew it was going to get him killed. But
yeah,
I think
I actually did a little bit of reading on that as well, and yeah, that was a really difficult story to sort of manage. Is that they take it upon themselves. They understand the cost, the sacrifice involved, but they know that what's got to be done. I suppose it's heavy in a world like that today.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of people like that, and I think there's a lot of people willing to go that extra mile. I mean, it's like even people disagreed with have gone the extra mile.
Yes.
I mean, I totally disagreed with the IRA. You can't take it away from Bobby Sands that he starved himself to death on the hunger strike for what he believed in. Yeah, no, I think it's not, and it's very much about having being true to yourself.
Yeah.
And laying it, laying online. I mean, I've been censored by the Masons. I've been censored by the Yanks, which is I'm at the sort of start of a poem I did, because my old band started from a genocide. We had a song taken off MySpace, which was called Pax Americana. That was because of the American government. We had some artwork which the Masons made was removed. So I think whatever, as soon as we open our mouths about anything, there's a good chance people are going to look. People who are not particularly our friends are going to take notice of what we're saying and doing.
Yeah, well,
I think that reflects a lot to us, because we're always trying to impress the next person with not so much impress, but at least
in part.
yeah, open that enlightenment of what we're saying, and particularly what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
It's friends being almost one of your top priorities, and pushing forward that message, because they're almost your backbone in your whole existence. If you get them the message, they're going to pass forward that message, and so forth.
That's right, and I think I think that's probably why you would get part of the punk scene, because it tends to be the punk world is actually sort of putting out a message. I mean, I think it happens very much in rap as well, and to a degree, obviously sort of the old folk and protest stuff. But in a lot of genres, that message doesn't come over, does it?
No.
No. Not particularly, and I think that may change though. The boundaries that we've been commonly defined by in the past are slowly sort of easing, I think, to just allow for a little bit more freedom in that sense. And I think that's the road we want to sort of be part of, is allowing for musicians to just freely express themselves as artistic people. We don't have to limit ourselves by what it is that we think we are at some point, because we live a life that's ever changing, it's ever moving.
That's right.
You can't stick. You stick to one place and you're going to stay there. You're not going to move forward. So we have to allow ourselves the ability to change.
So Socrates said, the more I know, the more I realise I do not know.
Yes.
And as artists, we have to be. If we put ourselves into a bracket or into a label, then we can't discover ourselves even more. Does that make sense?
No, that's right.
And it's like artistic. I mean, for me, it's like I hate sort of 3-chord punk. If it sounds like somebody else doing 3-chord punk.
Yep.
If you're doing something, I mean, I love creativity.
Sure.
And I think it's like, I think one of the things that inspired the punk movement was the Dada stuff. It was art as anti-art.
Yeah,
but I think you stop there. You look at the early punk bands who were mixed in that group. Everybody sounded a lot different from one another. You got Sex Pistols doing beefed up rhythm and blues, and X-Ray Specs chucking a saxophone and stuff in there.
Yeah.
It's like, for me, it's like we have to. I think we're created to create. I mean, I can't stop writing songs, because songs always come to me. It's like they sort of already exist somewhere in the atmosphere, and they just come to me.
I don't think you're ever going to get sick of writing music.
No, well, I'll get sick of sort of. I mean, sometimes I think, sod this, like I want to be an accountant or something. Because being creative and sort of doing what you do, it can be very frustrating. Sometimes you feel like you're banging your head against a wall.
Extremely self-reflective and self-dependent, so it's something that requires you to keep on top of you, and it's easy to let go of that every now and then too.
Yeah, and especially within a market where most of the stuff is manufactured. I don't know if you get X Factor over.
We get those shows, yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yep, we get them.
Yeah, I mean, it's like
just yep. We get those
Oh,
jokes.
it was a disposable heroes hypocrisy, wasn't it? You television and drug of a nation, breeding ignorance and feeding radiation. You know, I think television is very, very much aware which can control them. And I think that's why the internet is brilliant. I mean, YouTube is fantastic. I mean,
Yeah.
I've only had a couple of things on the internet censored. I mean, I think that quite possibly change. But it's like television. You just force fed it, aren't you?
Yeah, well, you don't get a choice in the material you're given, and 3/4 of it's advertising. In fact, 90% of it's advertising.
One way or another.
Yeah, one way or another, it's there to end up in profit. But
What sociology lecturer once who used to read 7 newspapers a day, and every newspaper he could get his hands on a Sunday, because he said it was the only way he could get a balanced opinion oriented. I mean, I said to him, well, probably you ought to get a life, but it's like everywhere has got its angle. Every newspaper, every programme, regardless of what side it's on, has its angle. So I mean, you often don't get near the truth.
no, and that's what we're always in search for now, is just trying to get a little bit closer to that, whatever that may be,
And
So
try yourself to find that truth.
yeah, within yourself, as a person.
Yeah,
feel that.
that's where that's the start.
Yeah, at
So-
least to start.
Yeah. So Eagle, if you have any last words, for anybody that might be listening here, to what we're doing and just trying to communicate with people on, people like yourself who are really caring about what happens next, and being part of that solution, mate. And I really do, salute you for that. It's a road less travelled for some, but it's one that's, it's a life worth living. I'll say that.
Well, I tend to think that the way things are going, everybody is going to have to stand up and fight, and you might as well start doing it now. Because if you stand up and fight when you're half starved and sort of you've got no guts left, then you're going to lose. If you start fighting while you've still got a bit of an advantage of possibly an element of surprise,
Yeah.
then we're going to save this world in some way or another.
All right. On that note,
think-
thank you very much, Eagle.
Thank
It's been
you
a
very
pleasure.
much
Thank you,
for your
guys.
time.
And good luck with the band. Keep sending your stuff through, and I'll keep playing on the radio show, because I do appreciate what you're doing. I like your stuff.
Likewise, and 1,000 thank yous, and I hope to speak to you again in the future.
You take care of you guys.
Okay, thank you very much, Eagle.
Cheers.
Bye bye now.
Thank you.